Where are we hunting for toys? Delaware, that's where. Welcome to Pegwarmers. I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys. Today, we're talking about the April Fool's Toy Show in Newcastle, Delaware. This show used to always be the first weekend in April, and I don't know how it happened, but it was basically the last weekend of April this year. Things happen. I think the show actually has changed hands, and so, it's different people, and maybe the date just was bad for somebody. I don't know all the background to it, but my friends and I all refer to it as the Delaware Show. Nobody actually calls it the April Fool's Toy Show. In my circle of friends, we're just like, you going to the Delaware Show? Yep, I'm going to the Delaware Show. All right. It's held at the Nershrine Temple, and it's, very unassuming building from the outside, but it does have a nice banquet hall or auditorium inside with a stage, and that's where the toy show is held. I often rank shows as like conventions and firehouse shows or hotel ballrooms, right? I'd say it's bigger than most of the hotel ballrooms like NJCC. It might be similar to a fire hall sized toy show. Yeah, it's in the middle somewhere. It definitely isn't, a giant convention, but it's not small by any means. It's a larger auditorium than normal. Heading into the weekend, I reached out to some of my friends. Rose and Tony were not going to make it to the Delaware show this year because they were vending at another show. My buddy Dave Croft from Maryland, he said he was coming up, which was great because we had a transaction going on. And I was pleasantly surprised to find out that Mike and Jen Bro were coming. Whenever they host the Delaware show, there's a train show on Saturday and then a toy show on Sunday. And I was reading the paragraph about the show, and I caught the time for early buyers, and it ended up at the show an hour early because it was the early buyer time for the train show. Whoops. So I hung out in the vestibule for an hour. Dave got there early as well. My friends Ed and Carrie Rents, who are the people that run the Woodbury show, they were there early. So we were all hanging out in the lobby, chit-chatting with the people that were there to, put your wristbands on and stuff. So it wasn't a bad wait. And then we got in for the early buyers period. Dave and I headed straight to the stage. There's a vendor that's usually set up there who often has G.I. Joe parts and things like that, so he's a guy that we often hit up. He had vehicle parts in a bin, he had backpacks in a bin, he had weapons in a bin, helmets in a bin. Dave grabbed the weapons container and started sifting through that, looking for stuff for himself. I started looking in the helmets bin. Later on we swapped. There were some other people around. So what I picked up was Wind Chill's blaster in black. This is one of my favorite guns from the G.I. Joe line. As a kid, I always thought this looked really cool with the Kenner Stormtroopers, and I just have a thing for it, so I tend to buy it all the time. I picked up the weapon pack version of the Cobra Viper gun, another one of my favorite weapons from the toy line. If I don't have enough of the white version or the light gray versions, I'll give them the dark gray version. I picked up this helmet. I think it's Star Brigade Heavy Duties. The Star Brigade Armor Tech guys, the big clunky looking guys, look weird without the helmets because they just look like a human head popping out of a robot. So I grabbed that. I don't really need it, but I didn't pass it up. I got a Wild Boar helmet. He's the driver to the Razorback, one of the Iron Grenadier guys. It's nice to have, like, those Army Builder guys have weapons for them, so having his helmet helps complete if you want to have, two in the driver's compartment. I also got the Buzzsaw weapon from Buzzbore from Cops and Crooks. I tend to pick up Cops and Crooks accessories when I find them because Cops and Crooks stuff tends to be hard to come by. If you missed last week's episode of Pegwarmers, I did a live episode, so it's actually on the live tab, not under the videos tab. I just wasn't going to get this video filmed and edited in time, so I pushed it off a week. But if you saw the Brainiac skull ship from McFarlane's Superpowers, I didn't have all the tentacles put on it at that point in time, so I did want to be able to give you a close-up view of that since there's no B-roll in the live episode, so you can check out how that rolls. So Dave and I walked around the stage together, and then once we got off the stage, we kind of split up and went our own ways. There's positives and negatives to hunting with someone. It can be fun, because you get to chit-chat about all the stuff, but it also sometimes makes it hard. One person wants to move faster than the other, or one person gets to dig through a bin while the other person waits, things like that. And since Dave and I didn't come together, we didn't need to stay together, and we knew we'd bump into each other again. This show always has a nice variety of action figures, die-cast toys, probably stuff from the 50s all the way through modern, maybe even earlier than the 50s. There's some real old-school items at this show. One of the first big things that caught my eye coming down one of the side aisles was a 75% complete USS Flag. Obviously, the box, is massive and is super eye-catching. This one had some duct tape on it. Around the side, it mentioned, that it had keel haul and a working mic. Obviously, I'm not really interested in buying another flag. This box is questionably better than mine. My box also has tape on it, but the box is kind of a pain. It takes up a lot of space, and it's just fragile cardboard. I actually would love to be able to put the box up here, but the space is already kind of full, and the flag box would pretty much just take up the whole space and eliminate the ability to display anything else. But this vendor had a fair amount of G.I. Joe stuff. He had several vehicles. I probably regret it a little bit, but he had a baggie with Daredevil with his file card and his gun, and he had Night Vulture with his little crossbow thing and his file card. Those file cards are hard to come by. He was asking $40 a piece on them for the figure, weapon, and the card. If Daredevil had his little visor piece, I definitely would have bought him for that price. So yeah, I was kicking myself a little bit. I did buy a couple items from him, though. He had a pile of file cards. They were a little bit more than I like to spend, unless I know I'm getting something that's a little harder to find. So they were where I was acceptable with paying for them, but I wouldn't buy any common file card for what he was asking. I got Drop Zone, one of the Sky Patrol guy file cards, and I'm pretty sure I don't have them. I don't have my list handy here, but I'm pretty sure I need him, probably all of the Sky Patrol guys, because I never had any of them new, and their file cards are a little bit trickier to find. I also picked up a couple of Street Fighter file cards. I had some of the Street Fighter guys as a kid, so most of the Street Fighter file cards I own are the ones that I had as a kid. So I picked up Sagat, Vega, Guile, and Balrog. I was tempted by some Double Dragon vehicles. I have very few Double Dragon toys. I see loose figures from time to time. I have Shadow Master. I might have one of the brothers. But it's a line that would be fun to do an episode on someday. And so seeing the box vehicles was tempting, but also expensive. But maybe someday. I always love looking at weird merch when I go to toy shows. And this Thundercats slate set, it's a little chalkboard and a little eraser. That kind of stuff just cracks me up. Speaking of weird merch, there was a vendor who had a little box of accessories for toys, and sitting on top of it was this Flint. This is actually a stamper. If you turn it over on the bottom, you can see it's got Flint in a crouch position shooting his shotgun. I assume this had a little base with the ink pad in it. I don't know for sure, but I really kind of like this little figurine, and that fits right in with those weird merchandise things that I always love. And since he was on top of a box of accessories, I looked through it. I couldn't resist picking up some accessories. This guy wanted a pretty decent price per item. It wasn't, sometimes, it's like a $2 an accessory, or maybe $3 an accessory, and it's like, that's kind of the right range. This guy wanted $5 an accessory, which, again, like I said, is a little bit more where I need to know it's something I need, and also know that it's something that's harder to get, before I really want to pay that price. I'll take a risk on things or buy things that I just like the windshield gun when they're cheaper. I did pick up a Star Wars blaster. There was another Star Wars blaster in there. This is the Bespin blaster. There was an Endor blaster, I think they call it. But it seemed funny. It seemed a little too small, and so I was really worried it was a repro. So I didn't get that gun. I also picked up a Snake Eyes backpack. I don't need this, but I felt bad leaving it behind because, 85 Snake Eyes is just an awesome figure, and having an extra set of his accessories is always great in case something breaks or I need to help somebody out. And then later on, when I was hanging out with Dave and another friend of ours, Don Johnson, Don picked up the rare variant of the Snake Eyes backpack that was mismolded or mistooled where you can't slide the sword down it. So this one has clear, open slots in the little prongs. But one version, 2 of the prongs don't have a gap, and so the sword can't fit in it. I didn't take a picture of it. I should have asked Don if I could snap a picture of it just so I could show it to you guys. But anyway, Snake Eyes' backpack was a topic of conversation. While I was walking around right in front of the stage, probably in that first row, there was a Ninja Turtles baseball mitt. This one happened to be Leonardo, but as a kid, I had the Michelangelo one. I saw the X-Men movie X-Jet toy. It was incomplete, so it wasn't really something I was interested in. But I've done several episodes about Toy Biz X-Men. I was on an episode of Hack of the Movies about X2, X-Men United. So I've sort of like referenced this jet a few times, and was slightly tempted, especially at the price, until I saw that it said incomplete. Mighty Max is getting to be really popular these days. The prices are going up on that, and I tend to notice it at shows a lot, the little compacts, you know. But this one was carded, and that's pretty impressive. Do you guys remember dinosaurs? Chris Stultz and I talked about this Jim Henson's dinosaurs in the Muppets episode briefly, and somebody had some of the McDonald's toys, and they were only asking $1 for them. These are little pneumatic powered, like air pressured figures that you press a button and an action feature happens. So Earl, he doesn't work great, but he moves his lunch bag hand. Oh, his tube is coming out of his back. Wonder if that's why he was $1. I got Baby Sinclair. Not the mama, not the mama, not the mama. And I got the mama, Fran. She tilts side to side, so she's got a little bit of a different action feature. I actually saw another vendor that had some of these, and I was going to pick up more of them to try and get the whole set, but he wanted $5 a piece for them. They're just not worth that to me. I don't pay more than $1 for Happy Meal toys unless it's like something I'm dying to own. But I would love to do an episode at some point on the dinosaurs, Jim Henson's dinosaurs toy line. One of my favorite shelves at the toy show. I just like the random groupings people do. And we had Dino Riders and the dinosaurs from Powers of Grayskull and Godzilla, and then Primeval from the Filmation Ghostbusters. This other showcase had some pretty impressive stuff, including some of the 12-inch Star Wars figures. I have a few, but not many. And also a Knickerbocker Lord of the Rings figure. Another thing I picked up from the vendor who had Flint was a Max Rebo button. It's still carded here. The packaging is not in great shape. I might already have this button loose, but I am a Max Rebo fan. I love collecting funky Max Rebo stuff, so I had to grab this. Some chubby Ultramen caught my eye. One of them was slightly inappropriate, so I have his one arm off screen there. Some of my favorite people to talk to and hear collecting stories from are Will, Amy, and Ben. These people, Ben and Amy are siblings. Will's Amy's husband. Will and Amy are super involved in this Delaware show. Ben's always a vendor. And Ben had several Last 17 Star Wars figures there. I was kind of drooling over the Luke Skywalker and the Amanaman. I have all of the Kenner Star Wars figures, but I don't have all their accessories. I don't have Amanaman's staff, which was making me kind of really pay attention to this Amanaman. And my Luke is not in the best shape, and he doesn't have his blaster or his helmet. Now, this one that Ben had didn't have the helmet either, which is really what made it easy for me to pull back, because I'd rather have the helmet than the gun. For whatever reason, I just really want the helmet that you can take on and off of him to make him look, cool on the shelf. Like, I want the helmet sitting on the floor by his feet. But Ben had recently picked up this from someone's childhood collection. Quite a range of guys here. The Carbonite slab for Han Solo, EV-99, Cleatu. That was a good score to save out of somebody's attic and get out to the collectors that are looking for this stuff. It took me a long time to get those Star Wars figures. G.I. Joe Gumblitz. This was a bit of an impulse buy. I was kind of cracking up about it, and the guy dropped the price to a third of what he had it marked. And I was like, okay, I'll bite. It's a sealed pack. I don't know exactly what year this came out. It definitely has the G.I. Joe logo with the head in it, which they were using for a little while. Based on the green, it made me think that it was like the Joe vs. Cobra era. 2003. Odds on. So this was made in 2003. It's a sealed case of canteens full of gum. It's kind of funny. It's definitely an impulse buy. I do like the weird merch. Unfortunately, it's not like a Real American Hero style logo. I prefer product with that logo over the 60s logo with the G.I. Joe head over the J. But, you know, you can tell it's one of those ones where they were using sort of both logos to celebrate both parts of the brand. It's got the stripes from the Real American Hero era and the original Joe head there. Do you guys remember Action League Now? It was a Nickelodeon show. They used, like, custom action figures to act out these stories. It was almost stop motion in some situations. In other situations, they just sort of, like, threw the toy or had toys on, like, strings. I picked up Thunder Girl and Meltman. I already have Stinky Diver and The Flesh. These were, like, Burger King toys or McDonald's toys at some point in time. But I felt like trying to get the rest of the set. And I actually only found Thunder Girl, and then the vendor was like, oh, I got Meltman, too. And I also picked up the Imaginext Thunder Megazord, which I didn't have. But Thunder Megazord and Thunder Girl dating is kind of fun. I never got this guy. He came packed with the Piranha's Head minifigure, and they were towards the tail end of the Imaginext line. And I just never got them. But I really liked the Imaginext figurines from Power Rangers. So this was a fun little score. I saw Rambo, Champion of Liberty, on card. Now, I had never seen the Rambo 3 3/4 inch figure as a kid. I was unaware of it, but it has recently become kind of popular with the G.I. Joe collectors, and I picked one up maybe at RetroCon or another toy show, I don't know, in the past year or so. But to see a carded one was kind of neat, and so I took a little video just so you guys could see it. You know, it's not part of the Coleco Rambo line that everyone seems to know and love. It's just sort of a less well-known use of the Rambo license. I picked up a green and yellow dinosaur. Oh, but he's not the Dino Hunters one. I've talked about the Dino Hunters T-Rex on the show before. I have one of him. This is the Imperial dinosaur that he was sort of modeled after and modded from. But I do buy these guys if I see them for cheap at toy shows or flea markets just because I think it's funny. So I've got a couple of these green and yellow dudes to go with the actual one from the Dino Hunter set. We actually had one that was missing a hand I bought somewhere one time in like a bag of dinosaurs. Didn't know he was broken. That one got chewed on by the dogs because the boys played with him and their cousin left him outside one time. But I have at least two of these guys down here alongside the hands tucked in version. So the Joe Dino Hunter team has a little bit more competition. Do you guys remember the Incredible Crash Test dummy toys and you push the buttons on their chest and they'd pop apart? Well, they made bendy ones also, and I thought that was pretty funny. They even have, like, articulation lines painted on them. It's a little bit bizarre. So at NJCC, I had my G.I. Joe accessory list with me, trying to cross stuff off as I get things. The first pages with the oldest stuff is the hardest to get. You know, things like Firefly's walkie-talkie, Alpine's rope and hooks, Sergeant Slaughter's baton, right? These are Crocmaster's tubes. Oh, I almost bought a Crocmaster. I looked at a Crocmaster. It was $40 complete. And I was like, is it worth paying that just to get the tube? Because I already have Crocmaster. It was a nice Crocmaster, too. It may be better than the one I had. I maybe should have bought it and upgraded. But I typed this list after NJCC and sent it to Dave, who was helping me hunt for stuff at that show. Because he has a pretty decent collection of accessories he's picked up over the years, and he slowly sells them on some of the Facebook groups and things like that. And he put in some serious legwork and really dug through a bunch of stuff. So now I have to delete a bunch of stuff from the typed version to make the newest version of my list. I think this is Toxo Zombies, Water Squirter, Sci-Fi's backpack. If you remember at NJCC, I picked up his helmet and his missile. Bulletproof backpack. Got a red version of Voltar's gun for one of the Star Brigade guys. Lifeline's pistol. A sword for Shadow Ninja's Storm Shadow, perhaps? These red missiles go to topside. And here's his gun. Ooh, here's a funky looking gun. Does this go to one of the Sky Commandos? Is this Spirit's gun, maybe? A gold missile from a Headhunter. From Headhunter or Headhunter Stormtrooper. Oh. I didn't need to buy Crocmaster. I forgot I was getting his tube from Dave. A mounting bracket. This might be Desert Scorpions. I got a new face mask piece for Freefall, because mine was missing the little nub for his mask. A grenade for Big Ben, I believe. One little tiny ankle missile to complete my Heat Viper. 1988 Night Force Tripwire backpack and 3 mines. 92 Roadblock Blue Missile Launcher, Black Missile and Pistol. 93 Armortech Destro Missiles ×2. 1993 Ken Masters Black Spearhead Machete. 1994 Ice Cream Soldier Missile Launcher. 1994 Snowstorm Orange Launcher, Hit and Run Gun, Pistol, Knife, and Bullhorn Gun. These are probably the biggest help that Dave was to me, though, here, besides getting me a bunch of fairly easy 90s accessories. Night Force Psych Out's backpack. Night Force Psych Out's big dish. Night Force Lightfoot's controller. And Night Force Lightfoot's robot. I love the little red version of it, but the black one is great too. I probably spent about the same amount of money buying accessories off Dave that we had prearranged the sale of as I spent at the show. There was lots of other stuff at the show that I liked, but, you know, I'm trying to really focus on the things that I need, like trying to cross these G.I. Joe accessories off my list, trying to finish up the Bionic 6 team. I did see a Bungie at the show. I didn't take video of them because I think it was the same Bungie that was carded and very expensive and out of my price range from SoloCon. But overall, I had a great time at the show. I did bump into Mike and Jen Bro, as I had mentioned, and we went out to lunch afterwards, which was great. We checked out the Bear Diner. I had a BLT. It was pretty good. So if you enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up button. That really does help tell YouTube I make quality content. Share this video with a toy collecting friend. If you want to support the channel further, you can consider joining us on Patreon. Thanks for hanging on the peg with me.